Hey guys, what's up? It's Moist Gaming coming at you again with another heroic dungeon alpha guide for World of Warcraft Legion. Today we'll be looking at Neltharion's Lair with Rhine
Hi.
and Forset.
Hello.
We'll be starting off with our first favorite rock behemoth, Rockmora.
One important thing to know about this boss is when you attack him, small mobs called blighted skitters drop from Rockmora's body. I believe there must be some kind of internal cooldown to this ability though, as it didn't seem like there was as many skitters as there was attacks went against him. As the tank, you should be trying to pick up as many, if not all, of the skitters that drop off of him to make it a little easier on the group to AoE down. When the skitters die, they leave behind choking dust, a small green cloud that deals high ticking nature damage every 1 second while you stand in it.
During the fight, Rockmore will turn to a random rage player and cast Razor Shards. Razor Shards does a cone in front of the boss, deals 450k nature damage to anyone standing in front of him.
Whenever Rockmora's secondary resource bar fills up, he will cast Shatter, and after a short cast will deal 250k physical damage around him, killing all remaining skitters. On Heroic, any skitters that are left whenever he casts Shatter will deal 250k nature damage to everyone in your party. It's important to kill your skitters before he casts Shatter. On Heroic, he will also crystallize the ground, energizing with electricity and dealing 50k nature damage every half second to anybody moving while crystalline ground is active. It's a lot like Tyrant's ability in Hellfire Citadel. You want to move as little as possible so you don't kill yourself while moving. I thought this boss was pretty straightforward and simple, but I'm interested to hear what y'all guys have to say about it.
There's really not a whole lot going on in this boss fight. You just don't stand in the bad places and you'll probably be fine, since most of the ads will likely die to passive cleave regardless.
Yeah, it's... At first I tried to gather up all of the skitters with taunting and shit, and eventually just like my AoE itself was picking them up for me, so I didn't really have to worry about that. The only time I ever thought, oh god, this could hurt, is when Crystalline Ground went out and the ads would die on me, leaving choking ground. But other than that, it's simple boss to do. Don't stand in front of it when the mechanics are happening, and good to go. Did a thumbs up.
The second boss of Neltharion's Lair is Ularog Cragshaper, who would probably be, in my opinion, the most fun boss of this dungeon.
First up, Ularog will cast Sunder on the tank, close to every 10 seconds, dealing around 600k nature damage. While this ability comes in frequently, it really doesn't seem like too much of a threat.
Ulog will also cast Bellow of the Deeps, which will summon a bellowing idol. This idol will cause debris to fall from the cave ceiling, dealing 65,000 physical damage to anyone near the impact zone. Currently, the bellowing idol has very little health, and even passive cleave will kill it within seconds.
The boss will also cast Strike of the Mountain to summon 2 sets of stone hands from the ground that will move inwards and explode on contact with each other. Anyone caught in the explosion will take 520k nature damage, so just be sure to step away from the boss when you see them.
With adequate DPS in your group, Ulrog will cast Dance on the Mountain 2 times during the boss fight. He will summon 4 bellowing idols that will continuously drop debris around the room, and he will encase himself in a bellowing idol of his own. He will slide around the map, including the 4 other bellowing idols playing a game of Shell. Once he's done moving, kill the bellowing idol with him inside to end that portion of the fight. Alright, I'm not sure about you guys, but I really enjoy this boss, even from a healing role.
I also really enjoyed it. The 3 problems I would say I had with it is the overall damage that went out was pretty much non-existent. I think I looked on Warcraft logs afterwards, and I had more healing done than you did. Another problem I had was Bellows of the Deep. The totem that it summons has probably like 400k health, which is about a crit from one ability. It should probably have more health. And the damage that the debris does when it comes down from the ground is, again, non-existent. And then the last problem I had with it was the Stance of the Mountain. When it plays the shell game and all this shit gets shuffled around, there was 0 punishment for getting the wrong one. Even if it was just minor AoE damage for a couple of seconds, like anything would have been decent. But it was just like, oh, I got the wrong one, I'm gonna go and attack this one now.
Yeah, I agree. Even you could kill all 4 other ones and then still have enough time to kill whichever one the boss was in. There was no real effect for fucking up that mechanic.
I think something that would make it really punishing for getting the wrong one would be if you had the... because obviously the idols in that phase are still used, like making debris fall from the ground. If you have 5 of those idols smashing debris down, that should be like really heavy hitting, and it should act as a mini enragey kind of thing, like kill the right one quickly before the healer goes zoom.
I'd like to see that, how they could implement that in a way that doesn't kill everyone or stress out healers. But other than like this fight overall, I think the shuffle mechanic's interesting, and they can go to really cool places with it, and making it a little bit harder. The fight overall.
I mean, yeah, you can never go wrong with the shell game.
No, never.
It's like what they tried to do with Heersha. Like, we're going to introduce a new mechanic, but this time they actually made it fun, but it just wasn't challenging enough. The third boss of Neltharion's Lair is Neuraxis, a hideous, disgusting worm.
The first thing to note about this boss is that the tank should never be away from Neuraxis, as if he can't melee anything, he will spam Putrid Skies, which deals a huge AoE nature damage against everyone in the group, for as long as he can't attack anything.
Periodically throughout the fight, Neuraxis will summon Worm-Speaker Devouts who will jump off of platforms from the entrance of the room. These will fixate on a player and walk towards them. They should be kited, stunned, and slowed as quickly as possible. Neuraxis will cast Rancid Maw on a random targeted player. It'll leave a AoE splash underneath you that deals toxic bile damage. Drogbar Devouts can be kited into these, and they will be rooted. From there, Devouts will throw random stone bolts at players, dealing 260k nature damage.
Neuraxis will periodically cast Toxic Wretch, which will cover the ground around her with toxic pools. These toxic pools will deal 40k nature damage every half second. It is important to note that there will be at least one place where it is safe to stand around the boss for tanks and melee.
Neuraxis will lean forward and latch onto the tank. After a few seconds, it will deal high damage to the tank and consume any drug bar nearby. Each enemy consumed will give Neuraxis a stack of Ravenous. This increases her damage by 10% per stack. And finally, at 20% health, she will enrage in a frenzy, increasing her attack speed and damage by 20%. This is where the fight gets quite painful, so just make sure you use a CD and kill her really, really quickly.
This boss had a lot of AoE damage going out, but I thought it was more than manageable.
Yeah, but other than that, it's a pretty simple fight. It's going to be very important to make sure that your DPS switch to the ads, because they die really quickly when DPS are switched to them, but if you only have one person focusing them, they can go down rather slowly, which can create problems later on in the fight.
Yeah, your healer will thank you for it if you don't have 2 of these assholes beating on you.
But even if you do, you can trap one and make it a bit easier. I don't know which it would be easier, if it's to have like them beating on you or if them just doing random damage to people would be easier, but either way it spreads the damage out instead of focusing on one person. The Toxic Wretch that goes out along melee, I really like that mechanic, because even though it's really scary and there's shit everywhere, there's always at least one place to stand. Finding that place can actually be a little hard sometimes, because it's a bit scary trying to find the safe distance from not being out of range of the boss, but not being standing in bad. I liked it. It was a good fight.
Final boss of this dungeon is Dargrul the Underking, who has decided to take up residence in Neltharion's Lair. On Heroic, every time Dargrul the Underking takes a step, he will deal fire damage to random players. You want to reduce moving this boss around as much as possible. However, it will be impossible to keep him perfectly still, as the tank will most likely get knocked around.
Dargrul will cast crystal spikes at a random player's location, causing a pillar of rock to erupt out of the ground. Getting hit by this deals a small amount of damage and knocks the player back. This pillar acts as a line of sight.
You will want to face Dargrul away from these pillars, because Landslide will cast huge spikes to erupt out in front of him, dealing 400k nature damage, knocking back any one hit. These will destroy the pillars, and you want to keep them up for another section of the fight.
After casting Landslide, the boss will then use Molten Crash on the tank. It deals 500k nature damage, and if the tank is not using active mitigation, they will suffer another 400k nature damage and be hit with a stupid long knockback. You don't want to be hit by this knockback, so be a good tank unlike me and use active mitigation, or you might take a dip in the lava pool.
When Dargrul begins to cast Magma Wave, you'll need to hide behind one of the crystal spike pillars. Magma Wave deals 1 million fire damage to anyone not standing behind a pillar. This is the reason why it's important to face Dargrul away from the pillars during Landslide. After Magma Wave, a huge lava geyser is created where Dargrul is standing that persists for the rest of the encounter. Also caused by Lava Geyser is Flame Gout, which targets a random player's location and deals 32,000 fire damage once every 5 seconds.
The Underking will periodically summon a Molten Char skin that has the same ability as the boss, Magna Breaker, that makes it deal damage to people with each step they take. On Heroic, they will gain a stacking buff that increases their movement speed and damage by 2% every second. If you are fixated, you should move away from them and kite them. These ads can be stunned and should be killed immediately. If they get to you, they will hurt. I felt this was a good final boss for the dungeon. It was challenging, but not overtly complicated. And I really like the addition of the line of sight mechanic.
Yeah, I agree. I thought this boss was fantastic. If I had one issue with it, it just felt like it was over too fast. I think if you could ever get to a point where, you had 3 or 4 lava geysers on the ground, shooting out AoE damage to everyone every few seconds, it would make for a much better fight. But the way it is at the moment, hopefully it's just something they'll tune later. But right now it dies relatively quickly, and you basically just get to see the lava geyser once. And I think if you could get 2 or 3 of those in a fight, that'd be so much more fun.
It's entirely possible once people come in there with the lower level, like leveling gear, that they will see more of those mechanics. But we had scaled up guild to, 820, so...
I can't wait for people to complain about how we wanted Blizzard to make this boss harder on live, and they're like, it's already so difficult.
Yeah, I fucking love this boss. There's so many mechanics going on, and there's stuff for everyone to deal with. The tank has to deal with the active mitigation shit. The DPS have to deal with the ad. We all have to get behind the pillar. There's pools of... When he uses his big ability, there's a big pool of shit on the ground that you can never go near again. I think this boss is fantastic. Like I said, I just want it to last longer.
I can't wait for him to make his return in a raid as Dargle the King.
Blizzard, make it happen. We know you to reuse your assets anyways.
Thanks for watching. This has been Moist Gaming's Heroic Dungeon Guide Neltharion's Lair on World of Warcraft Legion Alpha. If you like this video, please make sure to comment, subscribe, tell us what you enjoyed. Check out one of the other dungeon guides, like Halls of Valor you can see on the screen.
Boo-doo, boo-boo-doo. Click one of the links, please. Share it with your friends.